Good evening to everyone. While everyone is still coming in, if you would go ahead and place your name and campus in the chat. And we'll start here. Give everyone a few more minutes and we'll officially start. But meanwhile, go ahead and place your name and your campus in the chat. In addition to that, while we're waiting on the screen, make sure that your name, your first and your last name, as it appears on the roster, is correct. Because sometimes you log in on other devices. Sometimes it has someone else's name there. It may have phone or TV or whatever, but not your name. So make sure that your name is also correct on the screen. So you just go in and you can rename yourself if it is not. And just make sure that it lines up with however you're listed on the roster. So for those of you that are putting your name in the chat, make sure you put your name in your campus. They want your name in your campus. Give it a few more minutes before we officially start. Okay, I think we have everyone, so we will call it official start time. Good evening, well, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to PNR 152. I want to say 54, 52, but you're in the correct
Hello.
class. It's leadership. Hey, we
Hello.
can hear you.
Hi, I have a question. I received the code from Dr. Brown, the Zoom. Do I come in this one or is it separate ones?
This is the evening session. Let me go to the screen, and so it depends on what you are rostered for. So I'm not. Depends on what you signed up for. So I'm not sure. Now, I will tell you the first week, classes are canceled, they're combined. So that might be what happened. And then, in addition to that, canceling and combining, sometimes you look at your schedule and you decide that a different class, day of the week, or time works for you. I'm not sure what your situation is, but this is 152
Mm-hmm.
transitions. This is the 5:30 Eastern time section. So
Okay, yeah, but I received one from Dr. Brown. It took me to another class, and she telling everyone that's coming over there from Dr. Brown to come here.
okay, I don't know. So you're gonna show up on the roster. So ensure. So that's happening. Make sure that you put your name because the first week we do the same thing anyways. We go with orientation and then we go over a few of the concepts. So make sure everyone, and this is anytime that you log into a Zoom session, whether or not it is for class or if it's for exam review, we'll talk about that. Put your name and your first name and your last name and your campus in the chat so that we have, proof that you were here. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Not really sure. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a combine or cancel something. But anywho, name
Okay.
and campus in the chat, and then we'll move forward.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing that I was saying, you all make sure that your first and last name is listed correctly on the screen. So sometimes when you log in with a different device, if you logged in, or someone else is logged in using your device, something happens sometimes with your name. So make sure your first and last name matches how it appears on Fortis's roster. Okay, let me go ahead and pull up our PowerPoint. we will get started with that. I'm Dr. Ford. Some of you all we probably have met some of you all in other classes, and some of you all we have not, but been with Fortis for a while here, teaching the RN and the LPN program. In off of online, I do simulations, do a variety of things in the community, with the nursing schools, just pretty much everything from A to Z. But nevertheless, our time here is just as important as my time anywhere else. So I am your first person of contact for this course, unless you end up changing, to another section. And then whomever the professor is for that course will be your first line of contact. And so let me just point this out to you all. You all might know this, but in the instructor, about your instructor, that is where you can find our email. Because sometimes when you type our names in, other things pop up. Sometimes you can't find us. So in whatever section you end up in, whether this one or another section, if you need to contact us, um, outside of the Canvas mail, hopefully you all have two things. Hopefully you have Outlook mail. If you have come this far and don't have Outlook mail, you have been missing some notifications. So make sure you send a help desk ticket, include your campus dean in there so that you can get access to your Outlook mail. And so the other part is what I was saying was, in the event that you need to contact one of your professors and you're like, oh, I forget what their name is, just go to the about your instructor inside of the course in Canvas. And then our information is there. Our information is there. Our Dean Brown's information is there. But I think for the most part now, there are not many of us with duplicate names. One time there was several of us with kind of sort of the same name. So when you went to type it in, you couldn't find us. So, all right, I'm going to share this screen here. Our little orientation PowerPoint. Actually, I opened up several of them. Let me get the orientation ones open first, and then we'll go to Welcome to Leadership. So again, if you were asked to give any information and told to come to this class, just come to this class for right now. Make sure you put your name and campus in the chat so that we can have you down on record. Let me share here. First. Make a small over here. All right, and so this is brand new. It's leadership, but of course it's changed, transitioned to what they call PNR 152. So welcome. And if you don't decide to change your sections, we'll meet up here every Monday. I don't think we have a holiday. And if we do have a holiday that falls on Monday, our time is already built in. So we don't have to make up a Monday, or you don't have to go to another class. So that's the new thing that they started doing. I want to say maybe like the last year and a half. But prior to that, we were having to juggle, go here, go there, offer classes on all these off different times. But now, if you do, no matter what, if there's a holiday that falls on your Thursday class or your Wednesday class, that time is already built in throughout the term. So that's good that you don't have to, attend other sessions and everything. So what is this online learning thing? And so it is just as important as we're sitting in one space in a brick and mortar building. Of course, we use our computer, we have to use the internet, we need that connectivity. But we still have you as a student, the student learner, taking part in ownership of gaining the information, understanding the information they need to be successful in the course. And then you have the instructor. We have the course lead, which we'll have a slide on that here in a few. And then, of course, we have our deans. You all are from all different campuses. So make sure when you're sending communication, always include your dean, find out who your dean is, and then also Dean Brown, which is the online dean. And so, like I said, we have a slide on that. So the online instructor, we have interactions during our sessions. We talk, we go in small groups. You all give feedback. You ask questions. You will have weekly homework assignments, learning activities, quizzes. They have these adaptive quizzes. I want to say the first one, we'll talk about that. It should be a slide in here. But now we have these adaptive quizzes, so you kind of take them on. Well, you do take them on your own. They're not proctored. And then we do have the 3 exams, and we'll look at that here because your first exam comes up a week 3. So we actually start exam reviews next week because the first exam is week 3, 6, and 9. But we'll look at it when we actually get to our syllabus. So you are responsible to complete the required coursework every week. You all the readings, make sure that whatever is there, the NCLEX questions, whatever those assignments are, things happen. We're not, unrealistic, but you want to ensure that if anything possible, that you're turning your work in and submitting things that require coursework at a minimum by those due dates. Remember, you can always turn things in early. And I say that because I want you to remember every point matters. Remember, we don't round up. Everything is already built into the courses. So there's no time for extra work or extra credit. So we want to make sure that we complete the required coursework every week, no later than the due date. And we'll talk about if something happened, what happens in the event, that something happens and you need to turn something in late. So you will meet students from other campuses. You're not, like I say, I want to say in this class, there are probably 4 or 5 different campuses, but nevertheless, we're all learning the same thing and reviewing the same concept. So, but when you have to send those communications out, you want to make sure that you're communicating with your campus dean. So if you don't know who your campus dean is, make sure that put that on your to-do list. Find out who that person is. Okay. And so for any issue, computer access, course questions. I'm sorry, y'all. I thought I had turned this phone off. Course, grading concern or anything, you want to start with the instructor, the professor in that course. So start, and then in the event that I don't have an answer, we don't have an answer, we're going to always bring in that course lead. For this class, it is Dr. Mary Tenza, and we can't solve it or resolve it, don't have a solution, we bring in Dean Brown and also your campus dean. We communicate, no one knows everything, and they may have, especially your campus deans, they may have information regarding resources or solutions specifically to your area. So we always would, move it up. If I don't have an answer, don't know the answer. And if I do have an answer, and then I think that one of the others can add in something, we're going to always communicate with them. This is Dean Brown's information. This information is also found under the About Your Instructor. So it's there as well as mine. So, but you'll have access to this PowerPoint. About Your Instructor is right there in the Canvas. You just click it and the information is readily available. For continued concerns on your campus courses or campus components, CMs, labs, and clinicals, your campus instructors, first and foremost, your campus dean. You need to know who those persons are, especially as we talk about exams and scheduling your HESIs and things like that. Because sometimes there are some changes. So even if you were in communication with your dean last term, make sure reach out and see who that person is this term, because it might not be that same person. So communication etiquette and netiquette. You want to state your thoughts, be courteous, positive, and respectful to each other. Remember, we want to keep things, discussions regarding the topics, and therefore the chances of someone saying something that can be misinterpreted, it happens less. We do want to be mindful when we're trying to be humorous that sometimes things can be misinterpreted. So that's why I said let's stick to what the concept is. A lot of times I like to bring in like different characters, but nevertheless, we're still talking about the concepts that are required. You want to keep your comments relevant to the discussion topic. Be considerate of others' experiences, feelings, and their perspective. It's okay to listen and to, for someone to disagree with what you're saying. We want to use proper language and titles. We don't want to use slang, because then if we don't know what the meaning of that slang is, things can be misinterpreted. Of course, they tell us not to use all caps. This gives the impression that you're yelling. And I must have something turned on. So be careful with your responses, like in an email, but because you know how it creates those automatic responses. For some reason, all of mine are in all caps. So something must have been clicked or something. I have to go in and retype those automated messages, but I'll have to take the time to do that. But nevertheless, all caps is offensive. So take the time to uncap, make uppercase when it should be and lowercase when it should be. So your online course schedule and attendance, you all. Online courses, they have specific start and end time. So make sure that you're logging in. Now, as you work your way through this week, I don't know if Dean Brown has posted yet or not. If she has, you will see it in your announcement section. But if she has not, then it will come. They always let everyone kind of settle in. Then they send the announcement out with specific instructions. In the event that the course that you originally registered for, you find out the day, the time, it's just not going to work for you. There's opportunity. There's usually opportunity to send it communication to Dean Brown, and she'll send that when the time when she wants to receive those responses. So be thinking about work, home, family, whatever responsibilities you have as a whole. And this is for all your classes. And see if a better day or time of week will work better for you. And if not, I mean, if everything is fine, then you don't have to worry about sending that email. But if you're gonna always be late, if you're having a class on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. and whatever you're doing for family or work or whatever it is, it's gonna have you to be 15 minutes late. We'll look at it in a couple of more slides. That time can affect your grade negatively. That if you're not logging in on time. So be thinking about that. Your classes are scheduled on a specific day with a start and end time. You can't mix and match. If, for example, if I have two of the same classes, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, well, sometimes you want to show up in the Monday class, and sometimes you want to show up in the Wednesday class. That you can't do that. Okay, so these classes are mandatory. The live sessions are mandatory, just like your campus classes are. Course activities will include projects. We actually have a project that's going to actually start on week 2. Well, the reason it says start week 1, but the reason we don't really start week 1 is because sometimes student changes, courses are canceled, and things are kind of shaken up, mixed up a little bit. And so if we assign you today, next week, some of those students might not even be in this class. They in all your classes. So usually for sure we will assign, you'll get a chance to meet each other and decide what's your next steps and your plan for completing that group project. Lesson activities, you have adaptive quizzes, and the adaptive quizzes are supposed to take, it's geared towards like the NCLEX. So if you're answering questions correctly, then it keeps challenging you. But if you're not, it tries to get information or questions that will help you to think back on what the concept is to kind of help you, move forward positively. So they're called adaptive quizzes, and those are not proctored, but the due dates are there. Due dates are according to the syllabus week. So this is week 1. So if you have things that are due week 1, everything, the discussion questions, it should be on another slide here, are due no matter what class you're in by that Wednesday. Your responses are due by that Sunday. And that will be covered in another slide. So academic integrity, you all incidences of academic dishonesty, violations of academic integrity, it will be disciplined. And everything is not listed here on this slide, but examples are cheating, plagiarism, unauthorized use of notes and materials, including talking to other students, forging or altering assignments. And so once we go on break, remember that, first of all, these sessions are recorded, and I forgot to say that initially. These sessions are recorded and they are viewed by the attendance administrators, whoever they are. They come in, they make sure students are here, that you logged in, that you type your name and campus in the chat. And so the recording stays on during the break. So just make sure if you're saying things or you're having to speak to someone in your background, just make sure that you're on mute. Take the time to unmute when you're actually speaking to the group, and then put yourself back on mute because these sessions are recorded. And just make sure that, because we don't need to hear things that we don't need to hear or see things that we shouldn't be seeing. So just keep that in mind. So unauthorized use of notes. Let's just say Nancy posts something on Facebook and everybody gets on there and you start sharing those things. That's unauthorized use of notes and materials. So be careful. And that's just beyond academic integrity. When your people are posting videos and comments and things, make sure you be careful what you're sharing, because if you're sharing, it's just like you are saying that as well. So no unauthorized use of notes. Well, it was there. I just clicked on it to see what it was. I just went to that website. Please stay away from it. And there's a slide on those websites as well. So forging or altering assignments, um, copying and pasting. We having AI to write it for you, and or you using, a former students, they've written a similar assignment, you copy and paste it, and then it shows up that it's theirs. More than likely it's going to show up as theirs because the system turn it in. You all are probably familiar with that. It how is a gigantic file cabinet, so to speak, that has everybody's papers and has been submitted to this website or this database, and it picks up on all of that information. So just make sure you're not collaborating or receiving aid on exams, quizzes, or any other academic assignment that in which a reasonable person should have known that such aid was not permitted. Well, they just gave me their notebook and I thought it was okay, but it wasn't an open book, you know, exam. All those things. Just make sure that we're studying for the concepts, have understanding of the concept, that we're asking questions, we have the opportunity to meet one-on-one. You can send emails to talk about the concept, because we don't want to get caught up in this academic integrity issue here. Providing answers from graded assignments to others. Let me just flip these answers to others. That is not permitted. And then submitting AI generated assignments. Be careful, be careful, be careful. These things are not permitted. So sites that promote cheating, while we cannot list all the sites on here, there are some. Just stay away from those sites. There is someone, I don't know who it is, but there is someone that actually monitors these sites, you all. I know you might be intrigued, you might not be. Let me just see what they're talking about. Let me just click on the site and look around. You're just looking around in there just to look. Don't do it, because there's someone out there that actually monitors that as well. So use of these sites does not promote honor, ethics, or integrity. These sites are being monitored. This is real. This is not something just on a slide, you all. Being found on these sites will place you on a heightened monitoring of your work for academic integrity violations. When you click on the site, week goes by, nothing is said. Go back on there. They're not going to tell you. We're telling you now, those sites are being monitored. Click back on the site. Whatever you click in there is timestamped. So just stay away from it. And then eventually, something will be said to you, out loud or verbally in writing. Stay away from those sites. These sites are being monitored. Okay. Don't even reference these sites. Referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites will result in a 0 for the assignment. This may be enough to cause course failure. So just stay away from them. Just find your 5 peer review, a minimum of 5 peer review within the last 5 years, and just move forward. A second incident involving these sites will result in a course failure. Utilizing these sites, posting, downloading, go in there clicking around. Well, let me just see, will put you at risk of being dismissed from the program. Your campus and upper administration will be involved. If they are not on your list of resources in your course shell, do not use them. And these are just some examples. There are too many to list, but stay away from those sites that are, that promotes, or even if it's, passive cheating. It doesn't say, hey, this is just something to learn more about a concept. Stay away from it. If it's not those approved resources, stay away from it. Stutco, Coursero, Stuvia, there are too many to list. Cannot submit AI generated assignments. You all can tell you cannot submit AI generated assignments. And I read that twice because it's timestamped that we're reviewing this now. Please don't do it. So the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics for Nurses. The Code of Ethics serves the following purpose. It is a succinct statement of ethical values, obligations, duties, our professional ideas of nurses individually, and then us as a whole. It's a profession's non-negotiable ethical standard. It's the honor system. You go in, the MAR, medication administration record, says, hey, administer this Tylenol 325, one tablet at 4 p.m. It's an honor system. You're supposed to go in and administer as is directed. All the components are there. Patient hasn't refused. That is it's expected. That's what should be done. At a minimum of every 2 hours, this person should be turned and repositioned if they are unable to assist themselves. These are, ethical values and standards and things that we are individual, because you'll be that team leader. You're the one, you're going to be the charge nurse in that assisted living, that long-term care facility or skilled nursing home. So it's up to you to be making your rounds and making sure that people being turned and repositioned, that meal trays or food or options are being offered. In order to prove that we offer it, they said we have to open up everything. The person doesn't have to eat it, but lids should be taken off. Things should be open. It is expression of the nurse's own understanding of its commitment to society. This is what we're signing up for. People are coming to the hospital that you're working at. They're expecting us to provide the best care that we can. It does not mean that they will not have any bad outcomes. That might happen. But at a minimum, we should be providing what our nurses, our standards tells us to, without anyone, standing over our shoulder. That's what's expected. All right, so late work policy. And I got to keep my time to y'all, because at the end of every hour, we'll stop and take a break. And then usually at the end is when you all like to take that last little bundle of time. And we don't get out early because it's really your break time, but we really do get out early because that's when we take that last little piece of break. So, but in the event that you have to walk away from the camera, let me say this as well. You're expected to be on the camera for the entirety of our meeting here. Anytime that you have to walk away, restroom or something's going on, put a message in the chat, send it to myself. Don't send it out to everyone, and let me know what's going on as to why you're not in front of the camera. Because again, the attendance administrators, they come in and look and say, well, this person was off camera, for the entirety of the course. Yeah, they log in, they place their name and campus in the chat, but essentially they're absent. So make sure that you're communicating if there's something going on as to why you're not in front of the camera. Also, you want to submit your work on time, but sometimes things happen. Listen up. Late work is only accepted with prior approval from the instructor. You have to contact the instructor if you're going to be late. So what does that mean? You're sending an email, either Canvas or Outlook, stating, what's going on, and that you're requesting that permission to still turn that assignment in. Now, what's going to happen is we grant you the permission to turn the work in, but you're going to automatically, when you turn that assignment in 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4, up to 7 days late, you're going to automatically get 10% taken off that assignment. If you would have made 100 on that assignment and you communicate in writing and get prior approval to turn that assignment in late, the highest you can make on that assignment is a 90, because you're going to get those 10% deduction because it's late. And then after the 8 days, 8 or more days, you get a 0 for the assignment. So you can always turn work in assignments early. Got that little, even if, so you may want to set yourself a goal. If we all have strengths and weaknesses. So if you're, running for time or sometimes procrastinate, you might want to just set a goal for yourself to turn things in a day prior. And then therefore, if something actually happens, you still will be on time, because you really told yourself it was due a day earlier. But in the event that something's going on, you need to turn that work in late. You must communicate in writing. And things come up, we share those emails because they have to have proof that you asked for a prior approval. So just make sure that you're doing that. Late work cannot be accepted, will not be accepted without prior written approval from the instructor. Approved late work submitted by the student will be graded along with other weekly submissions for the next grading period. So what that is speaking to, so something happens and your work is due today. You've already submitted the email saying, hey, whatever's going on, would you grant permission to still submit this assignment? Permission has been granted. The next assignment is due Wednesday. The next assignment is due Friday. Those assignments are not bumped back. Those assignments are still due when they are due. We're only talking about that one assignment. So this is what is speaking to here. Approved late work submitted by the student will be graded along with other weekly submissions. So it does not bump back everything, because otherwise the term would never end if, we bump back things. So just keep that in mind. But you also have the option to turn things in early. So attendance. Attendance will only be recorded during your assigned live session times. So if whatever class that you end up settling in, that's the class that you need to log into. And that's where you log in, put your information in the chat, make sure your screen name is correct, and then that's going to give you your credit for attendance. So attendance is taken during the live session. Everything is timestamped. So even if you make it to the waiting room and we don't let you in until a few minutes after whatever, you're still on time because you're in that Zoom, you're in that waiting room. So to be counted as present in the class, students must sign in with their full names. You all remember when we first logged in, I said, well, take the time to put your name and campus in the chat. In addition to that, change your name if your first and your last name as it appears on Fortis's roster is not there. A lot of times if we're logging in with different devices, if someone else has logged in on your device, their information might still pick up. So always check, and you can always rename yourself if your first and last name is not there correctly. If you're going through a name change and it has not occurred yet, and Fortis's information hasn't went through, wait until the name change, because what we'll do is we won't see you actually being logged in as who you are on the roster at that moment in time. So, sometimes names changes. So wait until that information, that official documentation has went through and an official name change has happened on Fortis's roster before you start naming yourself whatever your new name is. You do want to be on camera the entire time, the whole time. Camera should not be pointing toward the ceiling. We're here to gather concepts, to learn, to do different activities, to further your understanding of the concept. If you're not on camera, adjust your screen. It shouldn't be pointed toward the ceiling. Anyone at work, driving, or in a healthcare setting, we don't want to violate HIPAA. At utmost, first and foremost, your safety. We don't want you to be working or driving and logged into the course. So you just need to, if something happens, so look at your schedules and see if this is going to be an okay date and time. And this is for all of your courses for you. We don't want to violate you're at a facility working and you have your Zoom going. And then, this thing is being recorded. So we can look in and see, oh, student Nancy is she's at the shoestring factory. She's over there in the office and we can see what what they got on their screen. So we don't want to violate anyone's privacy. Your safety is important. If you're at work driving or in a healthcare setting, hospital room, emergency room, you're just sitting there, with whomever, or if it's just you there, don't log in, send that information because we don't want to violate your privacy or anyone else's privacy. And then, of course, you will be removed from the session if we can actually tell that you're in those places. Anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session. I usually place a message in the chat. It didn't happen that often, though. Sometimes something to be going on. But nevertheless, anyone not coming on camera after being asked to. Of course, we usually don't say, hey, we don't stop the whole class and say, hey, Nancy, will you get on camera? But you will be removed from the session. That information will be pushed through your chat and we'll ask you to come on camera. Faculty will verify students' time in class by reviewing the login and the logout times on the Zoom. Everything is timestamped. So listen to this right here, you all. Attendance missed will be recorded in 15-minute increments. So if you're late 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, all the way up to 15 minutes for class, you're still missing 15 minutes of class. Well, I was only late 2 minutes. That equals 15 minutes. Well, I was late 15 minutes. That still equals 15 minutes. So your time is docked or taken away in 15-minute increments. And over time, you will see that could mean the difference in an entire letter grade. Because remember, we only meet one time on live in live on Zoom once per week. So make sure that you know this whatever classes that you're in, that the dates and times work best for you. Anyone without posting attendance, meaning if you don't log into your classes 14 days in a row, which is two times. Because remember, we only meet one day a week. So if you don't log in this week and next week, that's 14 days. You will be dropped without notification. And there is no makeup for missed attendance. You know, you had something going on, you know, please communicate that, but there's no makeup for missed attendance. You know, you can't go to another class and then that counts as your attendance for the class that you were assigned for. Okay. Attendance policy for nursing courses. Attendance is taken daily in class by the instructor and turned over to the registrar's office. I say the attendance administrators. So that, you know, once this class is over, the Zoom logs are downloaded, uploaded, and they're shipped off to their file cabinet. And they look at those things, make sure everyone actually logged in. What time did you log in? Did you log out early? Were there any early departures? Were there any tardies? Did people cut class? And they're recorded in the quarter to 15 minutes increments, you all. A period of less than 15 minutes will be counted as a quarter hour absence. Attendance records are maintained by the registrar as part of your student's permanent academic record. Students with chronic absenteeism in excess of 20% of the scheduled hours for the course may receive a failing grade or reduced grade for the course. So remember that 1 minute, 2 minutes equals 15 minutes of time being docked. Over time, for example, if you come in to class the first 3 weeks, and you know you're 10 minutes late, 5 minutes late, 3 minutes late, that's 15, 30, 45 minutes that you're being docked for. Over time, that turns into a percentage. And then it depends. Let me read this entire slide. Students who are absent more than 20% of the scheduled time will receive a full letter grade deduction at the end of the term. So you could very well have an A. But if you are absent more than 20% of the scheduled time, because remember those 15-minute increments, they build up. If you have an A, you may end up with a B in the course. If you have a B, you might end up failing the course because your C might not be at least at 78% without rounding. So make sure you're on time, select the best class, day and time that's best for you and your schedule. Consider all your obligations, the things that you're required to do. The online office will pull attendance weekly. So when we upload this log, they actually pull it and check it. And then they'll say, well, hey, everyone was present. So there's 0% being docked. Or they may come in and say, wait, the student is, they're at the 15 minutes increment. So if you're 30 minutes late for class, if you're 20 minutes late for class, that equals 30 minutes that you're missing off that class. So a student who is at 5% of the scheduled time absent will receive an email through Canvas View notifying you of the same. A student who has 10% of the scheduled time and it builds up, it doesn't go back to zero. You're late this week. You're late 20 minutes. So in Campus View, you're going to be docked 30 minutes. Next week, that same percentage is still there. And if you're late again, then it adds on to it. A student who is at 15% time absent will be required to meet with the campus administrator. So if you're at 10% scheduled time absent, we'll be required to meet with me and the instructor. So this is going to be your course dean, your campus dean, our course lead, Dean Brown, and myself. The level of intervention will be reliant on the amount of time missed, and a student may not receive all levels of warning prior to missing the 20%. So 20% equals a whole letter grade dropped. So this last statement, you might not receive notifications in Campus View for all of these. You might get your first notification, and then if you make it to the 20%, then you will receive the full letter grade. You say, well, I wasn't notified. Campus View might not notify you. So keep up with your attendance. And if you're running late and things like that, because over time that builds up. And we do not want that to equal a drop in a letter grade based on your attendance. Okay, so make sure you're logging into the Canvas course 4 to 5 times a week. Usually we try to post all our stuff on that Sunday, that Monday. But some things happen and we have to post others. So just make sure that your notifications are on as we post things. And also just get a habit of just logging in each of your classes and see, well, hey, is anything new here? Are there any new announcements or information that I need to know? Keep in contact with whomever your instructor is. If something's going on, please put it in writing, send the information. Do not hesitate in communicating because for one, we may can seek out solutions for you. We may identify solutions, and then we can just talk through whatever your next steps will be. Review the course announcements throughout the week. Like I said, we usually post those on for the most part Sundays no later than Monday. Submit all assignments on the week when they are due, including your discussions. If you are going to be late, seek that prior approval. But remember, there is also a 10% deduction. Towards the end of each week, review assignments for the next week. Just keep going. You have this 12 week. We're 1 week into our 12. And please don't procrastinate. Take it from me. Procrastination is not your friend. Okay, so day one of the term, you log into your Canvas by logging to your instructor. Open one of your online courses, click on the instructor information. I think it says about instructor. You want to write down this information. But nevertheless, if you don't want to write it down, you can always click it under the about instructor. It's always readily available there. It stays the entire term. You do want to print or save your syllabus because you'll have to refer to it throughout just to make sure that your schedule is aligning and that you're completing all the tasks. Everything's on that syllabus. You want to review your course syllabus, particularly the detailed course outline, and then sign the acknowledgement. You do want to confirm that you are given the correct textbook edition. And we'll look at that when we actually look into our course. It does not happen that often, but it does happen. Sometimes what's loaded into your course shell is not the correct edition that we're currently using. So make sure it matches what's on your syllabus. And this is for all of your courses. Like I said, it's only happened once or twice, but it's happened. So we need to just make you aware of it. Make sure that you have the correct textbook and the edition. Oh, I have textbook A, but it's edition 3. But in the course material and the things that you're being held accountable for is textbook A, edition 10. The information is going to be a little bit different. And when we refer to page numbers, when you turn to page 10, your page 10 is going to look different because it's a whole different edition. It's a whole different textbook because it's a different edition. It's just by the same author. Okay, so if you do have the incorrect textbook and edition, we need to send an email, include your campus dean in it, submit a help desk ticket. Let me pause here and see. We're almost at our break time, but let me just make sure I don't have any questions in the chat. Okay. So yes, we'll look at that orientation quiz. It was a post open, but we'll check it out. We'll check it out. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Okay. So again, you can't drive, you want to look at your schedules, you all. We have to work. That's fine. You mean if you have to work, that we all have to, or we're choosing to, whichever way it is. But you cannot be at work, you can't be driving, you can't be in any healthcare settings. So look at your schedules, and there are different classes. I don't know all the dates and times, of the classes, but pick out what's going to work for you because you cannot be driving, can't be in a healthcare setting, you cannot be at work. Okay, so supporting your learning, other learning activities. You want to come to class prepared to discuss the concept. So go ahead and look at what your required readings are. And therefore you can ask questions. And also you can, as we talk and discuss and go over the concept, you can validate what you know. Like, oh, okay, great, I understand that concept. Or I don't. Let me put this on my to-do list and go back to this one. So make sure that you're reviewing the concepts because we do discuss them in doing class. Attend additional review sessions offered by faculty, and I think it's already posted. We'll look at our announcements already. We have the exam review, the live exam review dates and times. There are actually 4 of us, if no mistake. So you have, and they're not mandatory. So at a minimum, commit to actually looking at the recordings. But if you can, attend the live exam review sessions, ask your questions, be interactive while we're there. Meet with faculty to discuss difficult concepts during our office hours. Office hours don't work for you. We have email, send that Canvas mail or that Outlook mail. And then we do have over the phone. Schedule tutoring sessions when needed. Your faculty will help you know if they see the need also. So, and I think it's a slide here. If you are, I think it's in my announcement. So I'll wait for the announcement because there's a requirement to meet with us weekly if you meet certain criteria. So we'll talk about that. If you're having technical difficulties logging in, contact technical support and then also let us know, your instructor know what's going on. Hey, send that email, whatever's going on. I've already contacted technical support and they're real good about getting us on our way or being able to access and look at things. They're really good. Other learning activities, we talked about that one-on-one tutoring. All instructors offer tutoring, just got to ask us. And then as I posted in the announcement, send a date and time, send dates and times. Of course, we always have the office hours, but if that doesn't work for you, send those dates and times so that we can meet if that's something that you think you need. Students have told us, students that participate actively in these 2 interventions, if they send those emails, if they do attend those live exam review sessions, that they have noticed that their scores are really high. Our HESI scores were really, really good this last term. They've been building. We've outscored nationals in every category. So, but the other piece of that is we gotta put our work in. We have to do the required readings. We have to go back through the classroom recordings. Make sure we go back through that. Attend the live exam review sessions. Because all of those different activities, they help you to strengthen your understanding of the concept and also helps you to identify if you have questions and don't understand the concept and reach out. So this is what they've said. But yes, so I want to say HESI scores averages were like as a whole. And like I said, I think there were at least 4 different sections. There might have been more than 4, but there was at least 4 different instructors. But every category we outscored nationals. Okay, so this is just showing you how your grade is made up. This is your DNA of your grade. How is this grade added up and how do we come to this score? Well, 80% of your 100% comes from your unit exams and your specialty exams. 80% of it comes from that. So make sure that you're ready. That HESI is usually 20%. So it's 20% of that 80%. And then we have the 20% down here. That includes your quizzes, your activities, your group projects, and your professional evaluation, we should have a slide on that. So what is this? So how do we get to that 100%? What is the makeup? What are the components that equals your 80, your 99 in the course? Well, 20% comes from your HESIs, which is that specialty exam, which you get that one chance to take. Your unit exams, which we have 3 of those. And then the quizzes, the adaptive quizzes, they're different now. And then the rest of your information falls under that 20%. So we turn homework grades on and off, and that's just to show you the impact of your homework. But remember, you must have that 78% without rounding. 77.777 is 77.777. It is not 78% without rounding. And so what happens is some students don't want the homework scores turned on because what usually happens is that homework score, it boosts your score because it does impact your score because remember it's that 20%. It's 20% of that grade. Um, but keep in mind, both must equal 78% without rounding in order for them to count. Initially, your unit exam and your specialty exams must equal 78% in order for the homework to even count. But during week 6, we actually turn the homework scores on. Just so you can see, well, how is this homework impacting my grade? Then we turn them back off. But homework scores will stay off until after the HESI exam is remediated. Because remember, your HESI score is not valid. It does not stay as that 100 or that 99.99 that you're going to make unless you complete your remediation. So that's that other piece. Okay. So your combined score on all unit exams, specialty exams in the course must be 78% without rounding or above before any credit for the homework grade is given. You know, for homework, you have a 90, but for unit exams and your specialty exams, you have a 75. That homework will not be considered because you have to meet that 78% or above. A minimum passing grade of a C plus, 78%, is required for the successful completion of the course after the homework scores are added on. Okay. So for exams, go ahead and get your 2 devices. Make sure that you find your chargers for those devices. These devices now, it's like they'll be charged. One moment you look back at it again, like where in the world is going on? But they says all that stuff you have running in the background. I don't know. But make sure you, in addition to your 2 devices, that you have your chargers. Make sure that your device is fully charged. Make sure that you have your IDs. You have to have that campus ID. Make sure you need those for probably skills lab and clinicals anyway. So make sure if you don't have it, put on your to-do list to go by the office and get that picture taken so you can have your ID. You must have 2 devices for each exam, laptop to run the exam, phone to be on Zoom. Be sure both are fully charged and that you have your charger. If your camera goes off while in the exam, you will receive a 0 for the exam. No excuses will be accepted. So, and make sure, especially if you purchased a new computer, if you received a new computer since last term, it's a requirement anyways for you to go through that practice exam with ExamSoft just to make sure that your computer meets all the specifications, because if it does not, ExamSoft will not allow you to take that exam. So we usually see that when people get new computers because they're usually, the software on them are a little different. So you do want to make sure that you go through that practice exam when it's turned on, just to make sure your computer specification matches ExamSoft. Because if it has things on it that does not match, you will not be allowed to take that exam. ExamSoft will not let you download and do what you need to do. So exams will be scheduled and given through ExamSoft. Log into Zoom on those 2 devices, sign into your exam. You want to read the exam description carefully so you know what the requirements are. You want to begin the exam when you're ready. Of course, we'll bring you all in to the class. You must have your ID. If you are going to use a dry erase board, make sure you go ahead and get that. They may have some on campus you can check out. And at a minimum, you can use those clear protectors, those sheet protectors. You can write on those and erase on those. And make sure you have your dry erase marker, not that permanent marker. When you are finished, you want to click save and you want to upload the exam. You want to wait on us to make sure that we have the upload on our end. Because if those exams don't upload, they go somewhere and it takes us a while to get them. So just make sure it's a small amount of time that you have to wait anyways before when you finish that exam and you click download and it actually uploads. So once you submit your exam, you will see a confirmation screen. Be sure to log out of the testing site. Be sure both your computer and your second device are fully charged, you all, and on that charger, make sure you have that thing in reach. Like I said, I'm not sure what's going on with these devices, but they seem like they're using a lot of battery power. You are only allowed 1 attempt. You cannot stop, pause, and resume when we're doing the exam. If you're having technical difficulties or any other difficulties, stop the exam and notify the instructor. There's usually two of us in the course anyways. And so make sure, and we point that out before the exam start, who we tell you who's there. More than likely, I am always going to be one of the persons that's there, plus another person is going to be there. Take the time, send the email or the communication through the chat. Hey, something, whatever's going on, and then wait on our response. No scrap paper is allowed. You can use that whiteboard or a protector sheet. That whiteboard is that dry erase board. Make sure you get that appropriate marker because you get that permanent marker, you can't erase it. The board, in addition to that, if you use either of those, once your exam uploads, you have to show for the recording that board has been erased at the end. You show it front and back, and then you're able to be dismissed. Remember, these exams are time. You want to pay attention to your time. You don't want to focus on the clock all to, too much time on it, but just know that it's time and your time does run out. So just make sure that you are, going over the content, asking questions when you need to so that you can move your way through those exams. Anyone with accommodations, please send an email to us. If accommodations is something that you think you need, send an email to your campus dean to find out more information about what is needed, what are accommodations, and what information is needed so that those accommodations are provided. But if you are one that already has accommodations, make sure that you send that information to the instructor every term. At the beginning of the term, send that email and whatever that supportive that document that they give you, and it tells us what those accommodations are. Just because you had accommodations last term does not mean we know that you still have them this term. So make sure that you're in regular contact with your campus dean. If you don't have accommodations, if you think you need that, find out more information. But if you already have them, please send that information to us. Notification less than 10 days before an exam may not be able to be granted in time. There's a process that must be followed. So let us know if you have accommodations so that those things can be provided for you. Okay, exams are held during your scheduled class time. Exceptions only with written approval by your faculty and copy to the national dean. So think about it. You know your setting where you're at. Sometimes some students they will say, well, hey, my dog is a when I'm sitting down trying to concentrate, the dog is always bothering. Or, the cat or family members or whatever. So it's best for me to take this exam on campus. If that is your desire, you need to put that in writing, send an email to your campus dean, myself, I'm going to include Dean Brown in it as well. That has to be done 72 hours before the exam is supposed to take place. So, of course, we take our exams on Mondays. So you have to, 24 hours would be Sunday, 48 would be Saturday, no later than Friday, Thursday, Friday. Send that email, probably Thursday, because it's 72 hours prior to. Because what has to happen? We want to grant you that opportunity to take that exam on campus, but we need a person to proctor that exam for you, and we need a place. Most of those buildings and rooms on campus they're being utilized, so we have to find a place that's going to be free of distractions and someone to proctor that exam. So make sure exams can only be proctored with the faculty member on campus with a 72-hour notice and must be done during the scheduled class time. Usually if it's on campus, usually the campus is closed. So during this time, know that they usually give you those proctored exams prior to, especially for those of you that are in later classes. Now this one, they may proctor you during this time. But if you're in a later class and you need that exam proctor, then they will administer that exam before your class time because the campus is closed at a certain time. So we're going to stop right here and we will revisit this spot when we come back. Remember, the recording will still play. You can turn your camera off. Just make sure you're back in 5 minutes. So it is 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, so return at 6:35. Cameras can be off, but and turn your mute yourself. But remember that this recording will still play. So don't show us or let us hear anything that we shouldn't. All right. So let's pick up where we left off. Let me just make sure I'm clear. You decide what's going to work for you. Like I said, I shared some students in the past, they decided, hey, it is less distractions, the time of day, something was going to be happening at the home. They're going to come in and, I don't know, uh, deliver a new stove or whatever. But they knew set at least 72 hours before the exam date. And they put that information in writing. And to the campus dean, myself and Dean Brown, for whatever reason is that you need to have that exam proctored on campus, and so they can find a person and a place so that that can be done. Again, accommodations are a number of things. That's why I say if you think that you need that, find out that information from your campus dean about what it is and the documentation that's required in order for those accommodations to be granted. And then if that's something that you do have, make sure that you send that information to all of your professors every term so that we can provide that information of those accommodations for you. Okay. So exams are Zoom proctored. That means that, someone is watching, observing you doing the exam. You must be on that camera the entire time. So if you have any of those special settings that will cause your camera to turn off, you need to go ahead and disable all of those things, because if your camera goes off, then we've already told you it's going to negatively impact you. You need to have your photo ID. If you are going to use a dry erase board or that sheet protector, get that, and also that appropriate marker. You don't need a calculator because a calculator is built inside of exam software. Prior to the exam starting, you must show the complete testing environment. So you're going to do your 360 view of the testing area. That includes your desktop, your walls, the size of the computer, the chair, floor, and testing area. You must show your ears if covered. If a tester has religious exceptions, please ask to discuss this issue with myself or any of your professors. Appropriate accommodations will be granted. Do not assume that we know about individual requirements. Please bring that information to our attention. Communicate to us. Put the information in the email, Canvas, or Outlook, so we can do the appropriate steps to provide whatever it is that's needed. Missed exams will be held to the late policy. An exam missed without prior notice. Our exam is today. No one, and you don't call, you missed the exam. There's no communication. There's no email. There's no communication at all. That's a zero. Exams missed for personal reasons will result in a late penalty. And so that's even with the notification. We have an exam today, and for some reason, whatever the reason is, some personal reason, you had to go to the ER, something happened to take the dog and you have your documentation, it is required. You're still, that late penalty will be there. So start looking at your calendars. If you're taking more than one class, you all, this I think I wanted to bring up. If you're taking more than one class, look at when those exams are given. Sometimes those exam falls on the exact same day of the week. You leave, if you're taking more than one class, you take an exam at 2 o'clock, come to this class and you take another exam. So be thinking about what that's going to look like for you. Sometimes it falls like that for each exam. Sometimes it's exam 1 and 3. But nevertheless, bringing these things to your attention so you can start thinking it through and thinking about what you need to do. It might be where you have to take that exam on, you may have to take that exam on on campus. So that might work out best for you because you're taking that first exam, at whatever time. So be thinking about what that's going to look like for you, because you don't want to miss that exam. If you're having a class on campus and you're having a drive and you're going to be late for this exam or don't make it for this exam. So be thinking about what that is going to look like for you. Even for HESI week, HESIs are generally not given on the day that you actually take the class. So be thinking about doing HESI week. That's week 11. If you have more than one class, think about your schedules. work, family, whatever it is, what are the obligations that you have? Because week 11 is going to look a little bit different than the rest of the term. Because generally that HESI falls differently from when, the time frame from when you've been regularly taking your class. So just put a pin in that. As soon as the campus teams know about the dates and times of those HESI exams, they usually push that information out. So for sure, no later than the week 9, you should know what your week 11 is going to be looking like. So exams missed due to an emergency will require documentation of the emergency. This documentation must be submitted to the National Dean of Online Nursing Education, as Dean Brown, your campus dean. Notification must occur within the 24 hours of the scheduled exam. Documentation must be presented prior to the exam being rescheduled. Any exam not rescheduled within 7 days of the class time will result in a 0. Okay. Contact your instructor with issues that may prevent you from being successful on an exam before the exam. So we can talk about whatever the concept is, discuss test taking tips. So we can work with you, decide on what's the best next steps or solutions. Contacting us after you taking that exam and you hit that push button, that submit button, you kind of remove any chances of us being able to talk through and work through whatever the issue is. We want you to be successful. That's why we're here. We need the next, it's always been this nursing shortage. So we need you to help out and provide the best care for our patients, no matter where we end up, no matter what setting or state that we end up in. So we're here for you, but it does require you communicating. Requires you to communicate before you know that you're not successful. Okay. Doing an exam. If you're having technical difficulties, you are encouraged not to continue. We've had some students say, hey, it's okay, it works itself out, and continue with the exam against the advice that's provided. That's fine. The only thing is, once you get your score, that is your score because the student has chosen. But you are advised to not to continue. Do not continue or try to continue if you're having technical issues. Because you get sidetracked, you're not doing your best because you're focused on getting that technical issue worked out. So that happens. Even if you fall off Zoom, put a message in the chat. Say, hey, I'm losing connectivity, but just keep logging back in. Notify us immediately. There are usually 2 of us in the room, and we will usually take you to the breakout room to see if there are any solutions that we have that can resolve it. Things that we can do, we verify issues by reviewing the log. Review the number of times the students stop viewing the testing site. Remember, all that stuff is time stamped. Review how much time the student used of the allotted time, because the exams are timed. Review how many questions that you've actually seen, because it shows what you're looking at, and allow or give a code to reassess the exam once. So sometimes it will ask you for a resume code, and you'll just put that in the chat. It's asking for a resume code. And we'll look and see what that code is, and we'll give it to you that you can start back taking your exam. Things that we cannot and will not do: allow a retake on an exam due to technical problems or other physical or emotional issues when the majority of all the questions have been answered by the student or time has ran out. If there is something going on, whatever that something is, there's a line, whatever that something is. It could be something emotional. It could be something technical, connectivity. There's a stone, whatever that is, you fill in the blank. Let us know, because once you decided to move on and take that exam, we can't, it's nothing that we can do other than, tell you that grade is there, remind you of, what the policy is and what we strongly recommend the next exam. But because sometimes things will happen, this is getting to be what this is the fall of the year. And, we have storms, they say cold storms are coming. So you just never know. And then hopefully we don't experience anything physical or emotional, but we don't ever know. But that is important. So if something like that is going on, physical, emotional, and it's not going to allow you to do your best, please communicate that before taking the exam. Put it in writing, send that email to us, and then we will discuss what the next steps are. So please get your photo IDs, you all. You need those for clinicals anyway. So make sure you have those. You must be on camera at all times. Have those two devices, your chargers. Get your ID, your dry erase board, or your sheet protector, and that marker, something to erase it with. Full face must be visible at all times. Failure to show photo ID or not be fully visible at any point may result in the exam and or course failure, you all. So specialty exams, we're talking about that HESI. The benchmark for this exam is 900 and you all can do it. Specialty exams are given in a proctored environment on campus. That's that week 11 I was talking about. You have more than one class, and for whatever classes you have, reach out early, at least week 9 with your campus things if you have not received any information to see when that date and time that exam will be. Because usually, like these later classes, most of the time it does not. But they may change some stuff, so it may happen on the date and time, but usually it's going to be some difference. HESI exams can occur anytime in the HESI week and are scheduled by the campus according to the campus availability. So make sure you're reaching out early and communicating whatever that issue is that you have, if you have one, once those HESI times are released. This exam counts as 20% of that 80% of your testing grade. And so the benchmark is 900, you all. 900. We can do it. So in order for that HESI grade to remain valid, to remain in that grade book and count, you must remediate. Remediation is mandatory to receive your HESI score. Remediation consists of completing that 100% of remediation time. Well, if you made a 905, you must spend at least an hour inside of their remediating. These are timestamped. Sometimes it'll populate you packets. You may go through those packets in 30 minutes. You must still review other content so that you can meet your 1 hour requirement to keep your HESI score.
I'm sorry, Professor. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we must get a 900?
No, that's not a must. But
Oh,
that's just but I'm trying to tell you, if you put the time in, you go through the activities, you do the required readings, that is high. I want to say it was, what was the conversion score? Was it an 86? This last term, those students rocked. Every term we've outscored nationals with maybe like one or two categories. But this last term, I'm trying to tell you, those people are, what in the world? They really put the work in. It can happen. That's just a goal we set for you so that, and I wouldn't score, if you don't need but 800 to pass the course, still do your best because you want that because remember, it doesn't end with HESI. You have to take that NCLEX and you want to take it that first time and pass, and you want to provide that best care to your patients. So just do your best. You'll do your best. And we just set that as a goal for you. So remediation is mandatory to receive your HESI score. Remediation consists of completing that 100% of remediation time. So if you score let's say a 553, you must spend 8 hours in there to get that 553, whatever that conversion score is. Looking at the content. Remediation packets are to be submitted by 11:59 on that Monday of week 12, which we can look in and see that you spend the appropriate amount of time in there. And that's what keeps your HESI score. Failure to complete the 100% of remediation will result in a HESI score of 0. If you made a 909 and you did not spend that hour in there remediating, you do not get that 909 HESI score. You don't get it because the requirement is, in addition to taking that exam, you must also remediate. It is mandatory. It's both of them. All right, so lesson activities. So lesson activities in SurePath cover key concepts for your reading assignments. The lessons include text, micro quizzes. So through the information. They'll have these little bitty quizzes. They call them micro quizzes, like 1 or 2 questions, videos, and assessments that test your knowledge of the content. Those things that you're not testing so good at, put a jot note down. Go back over that content. That's going to be at the top of your list for reviewing content. Your instructors will have access to the dashboard that displays students' performance and time spent in each lesson. We can see all of that. Everything is timestamped. The lesson activities represent 5% of your grade. Like, that's not that much. Yes, it is. Remember, every point matters, you all. You want all your points. 100 on all. These adaptive quizzes, they're also in SurePath, will cover concepts from your reading assignments. Each quiz has 50 questions. Quizzes are personalized. They're specifically to you. Like I say, it will help you increase your mastery of the content. So if you're consistently answering questions incorrect, then it will rephrase the questions. It'll ask you the same question. Like, well, no, this is the same question it just asked. They may ask it in a different way. So the SurePath is meeting you where you are, and then supposed to be these adaptive quizzes, meeting you where you are and building you up so that you can identify the concepts that you still struggle with, and also master the content. Master those concepts that you struggle with. The quizzes are taken at home and they're not proctored, but they must be taken in one session. You will only have that one attempt at each quiz. The adaptive quizzes represents 5% of your grade. So don't click in there if you are having to go, run to the store. You're having to go to a meeting or something, because you get that one attempt. It can't be reset. Okay. So every week, you all need you. I'm going to read this slide word for word. Professionalism is a key component of your success in the academic environment and in your career. Your instructor will submit a weekly assessment of your professionalism in Canvas based on these qualities. So, did you arrive to class on time? Did you attend all classes on time? Were you punctual? Communication. Did you engage in a respectful and constructive interactions with both peers and instructors? Respect for diverse perspectives. Did you value and consider the viewpoints of others? Or did you consistently not allow the person to speak? Adherence to guidelines. Follow the dress code and academic integrity rules as detailed in your student handbook. We're on camera, we're being recorded. You can always rewind back and say, student A, didn't follow the dress code. And this is a part of your grade. So make sure you're dressing appropriately, making sure that your surroundings are appropriate, that you're upright, sitting at a desk or comfortable, but make sure you're not laying, in the bed or anything. Complete all assignments promptly. Make sure that you're not at work, you're not in a healthcare setting. Actively participate in class. You're in groups, and we put you in the small groups. I circle through, just I don't want to interrupt your conversation, but I'm there just to listen. Make sure you're participating. I may call on you to, hey, read a slide for me. Did you actively participate? Reach out to faculty with any concerns or issues in a timely manner. Send that email. Hey, we went over concept A. Don't understand concept A. Or I thought concept A meant this. Was it more I look at it? Whatever that communication is that you need to do, make sure that you communicate in a timely manner. This feedback is intended to help you measure your progress and identify areas for improvement. We all are life learners. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Our goal is to support you in developing the professionalism skills that are necessary for your future success. And so this is a weekly thing, you all. The professionalism evaluations, it represents 5% of your grade. Doesn't seem like a lot. Remember, I said every point matters. Make sure that you're following the dress code, attending your classes on time. Okay? The group project will guide the development of professional goals relative to the profession. So you do have a group project, and we'll look, and once we look at our syllabus, it says it starts this week, but we know, like someone brought to our attention when class first started, you were given a Zoom code to log in here so you can get your attendance counted for, but this might not be the class that you're actually in. So we will make sure that we'll wait until week 2 to actually through the group, because people in Dean Brown usually allows you all to change if there's availability in another class, if you identify a day and a time, and there's space in that class. And once everybody gets settled, yes. So if you responded in another class, if you were not in this section and you did some type of post or something in that class, make sure you copied and pasted and put it somewhere so that you can refer back to it. Because if you get moved to a different section, that does not roll over. You will have to repost. So if you've already posted in a class, that's for this class or any of your other classes, and you end up changing your section, that information does not roll over to the new section that you are going to be in. So make sure you put that information, do a Word document, copy and paste it, put it somewhere so that you can go back to it and resubmit it, because it does not roll over. It just goes away. Review and follow the instructions. This is just a slide that shows how if you click on your assignment title, that it actually lists more detail. And you want to look at that because this is aligned with the rubric. Because if it says complete 2 paragraphs regarding apples, and you have 1 paragraph talking about apples, and you can't get your other points because you didn't do the 2 paragraphs, which this rubric specifically tells you. Once you click the assignment, the rubric gives you those details of how you will be graded and how you will receive your points. Okay, watching my clock here. All right, so this is a slide showing your grade, your rubric. So grade your own work before you turn it in. Look and make sure that you have all those components, because every point matters. If it's a word count, if it says 20 words, see, you have 20 words. I'm just giving that as an example. If it says 6 paragraphs, first paragraph talking about apples, second paragraph talking about bananas, make sure that your information that you're turning in, your product that you're turning in, the assignment, it matches. And if you don't have the information that's on that rubric, don't turn that assignment in. You have until the due date to receive all of your points. Go back and rework. If it says list 5 references, make sure you list those 5 references, because the grading tool is what you are being held accountable for, and that's what you're going to receive your. My alarm just keeps going. I don't know why I have this alarm set at 6. It should be set at 6:30. It's set too early. So that's how you receive your points. Make sure, grade your own assignment before you turn it in. If something's not right, go back and rework. Because if you don't see it, I'm not going to see it either. So that you're not going to get your points. So make sure that it's there. Unapproved sites, you all, just like we kind of talked about earlier, all of the sites are not listed here. Let me read this entire slide. Unapproved websites. Students using unapproved websites for research on homework will receive a 0 for the first offense. Upon the second offense, you will be failed from the course with a recommendation to the campus for dismissal. This includes using sites such as Course Hero, Studco, Stuco, I know I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, Quizlet, or any AI-generated source. You may have said, well, we've used Quizlet in the past, but we can't use it anymore. We can't use it because it was found that it was, some things on there, or some resources on there were not, it was unapproved. So we can't use it anymore. If you do not, so we usually use Kahoot if we're doing that group activity, interactive group activity. Quizlet did allow for that, but something about the content and the way things were on there was unapproved, so we had to stop using it. If you do not know how to use a resource, you have resources, and we'll look at that when we look in your Canvas course. If you don't have those resources there, just please contact myself or the campus manager, your campus dean, or send a help desk ticket if those things are not there. Okay, so tips for papers and projects, which you all will be assigned here next week. You come up with your game plan, and then you'll come up with your dates and times, your deadlines, and you work all that out. In addition to that, you want to use a current edition of the APA, because you do have to reference or cite your sources. Purdue OWL is a good resource to use. It helps you out in citing those sources. You want to do those in-text references, as well as list all those resources at the end. You want to only use searching journals or textbooks. Make sure they're no more than 5 years old. Make sure you have sufficient resources for review. Make sure your research relates to your topic. For example, if the topic is nursing leadership, or if it's apples or bananas, make sure it is about the apples or bananas of the nursing leadership. So make sure when we look at if we were to click your reference that you have there, your source, like, wait a minute, this source is about apples. This paper should be about nursing leadership. So make sure that you're listing things that are relevant to the topic. You do want to summarize, paraphrase, put it into your own words, but you still want to cite that source. Give credit for those ideas to the source. Okay. Tips to be successful in the course. You want to communicate verbally, either email, Canvas. If you don't have Outlook, make sure that you let your campus dean know that you don't have Outlook so that you can do that help desk ticket. It's just a few clicks and they'll get you in there. Because you're missing communication, because all communication does not come to your Canvas. Canvas is within that core shell. Outlook is, you can have your Canvas connected to your Outlook, but you can receive communications from other persons that are not in your course. Okay, so plan to attend the review sessions, and we'll look at those dates and times. You can't attend them. Commit to at least going back and looking at the recording. Tutoring, if that's what you need. Want to read the book, read the required readings, use course resources, and you got to prioritize things. Delete some things, rearrange some things. Remember, this doesn't last forever. You're almost there. So you want to put some things on pause, do so because you're almost there. All right, let me look and see if there are any questions in the chat that I have not answered. Like I said, some of you are given a Zoom code at the beginning. You all were, I guess, I'm not sure, but I think you all were in another section. But those sections are combined, cancel, or something happened. So the Zoom code that you had at first might have been a different Zoom code. So for sure after that today, for sure by what's today, Monday? So for sure by Wednesday, you will know which class that you'll be in, and you'll know which Zoom code you will need to be using. But nevertheless, you're here, you answered attendance, so you're here today. Because my understanding, you all logged in somewhere else and they told you all to log in here. So, and I'm sure it's because the class or something was canceled.
For me personally, when I went to it, I went to the email and the announcement, and I clicked on the link and it took me to your name, but the video never popped up. So when I went back to it, I entered the code. That's how I was actually able to get into this one, because I was sitting on the other one for like 10 minutes and nothing came up. And then when I typed in the code, it took me to this one.
Okay. So we can check it and resend it back out. So that little short link did not work. It didn't just take you all the way in. You still have to enter the code, is what I think I hear you saying.
Not for me, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to get our course pulled up here. And we will look at our syllabus. So it has not been published yet. Dr. Dean Brown has not asked you all if you want to change sections or anything like that yet, but be looking at your schedules, school, work, family, all of the things you're responsible and be thinking about it. If you're fine, you're fine. Be thinking about it, because she usually does ask, if students can change, if they want to change sections, and then you have to have a section in mind.
When you say sections, what do you mean? Like, do y'all have different times or?
There are different times and different days, because
different
usually
days.
different times and different days. There's some of us that run at the same time, but then there's some classes that are on Monday, but they were this morning. There's some classes, it's always a Friday class, seems like, because usually we have to wait until Friday after the last class takes their exam and we have our exam review. Exam analysis, then you get your grade later that Friday, even though we took our exam on that Monday. So they're different. This class is posted different days of the week and also different times on the same day. Because I think Dr. Tenza has a morning class like at 9, And then I think she also has one that's on Friday evening. But then there are four of us. It's Dr. Martinez, myself, Foster, and Tenzel. There are four of us, not five of us. There are four of us. So now where you go to find that information, I'm really not sure. It probably maybe your course, your school's catalog. If you're trying to see a different day of the week, if you're trying to see a different time, I think maybe your course send an email to your campus dean because I'm sure that they have like that list, that running list. But yes, this class, I think there's the exact same class being taught at the same time. Then there's also a class that was taught this morning. And I know there's always a Friday class, seems like. I haven't seen that anywhere, but even though we take our exams on Monday, just go ahead and let you know we can't get our scores until we have that exam analysis. Well, first of all, the last class has to test. We do the exam analysis just to make sure we didn't miss anything, and then get your results that day, which is that Friday.
Okay, because I just wanted, because I know when you were saying different sections, I was kind of confused about what you mean by different sections because my schedule say five. It says this on Mondays 5:30 to 8, but that's why I was trying to make sure what you was talking about.
So it should say to I guess yours would say 811. Is that what you're saying? Did it say 811? It's a
Yes,
strange
ma'am.
number.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's like how did they figure that out? But that's where they add that extra time in, so we don't have to make up if there's a holiday. But yes, there are different sections of this same course. This is not the only course.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so I am looking for our. So welcome to leadership. This is one of our announcements here. Let me pull this up. So it's more than just being the boss, but you are the boss with leadership. If you're gonna be that charge nurse, they coming to you. You're the person that's in charge. You're the person they're looking for that wisdom and that guidance. It's of course based on the state practice act, which should also align with um that facility, no matter what facility you're in, their policies and procedures. So, but it's also about establishing a professional presence. So let me tell you all this too. I know you got your different clinical rotations. Make sure that you are taking advantage of your clinical rotations. Look, there are opportunities to observe, to perform skills. Make sure that you're doing it because you're going to have to list that information on your resume. Because remember, you're trying to get hired as a nurse, but you don't have any nursing background as yet, but you have student nurse skills and things that you've done. So you want to be able to list those things that you observe doing clinicals or either actually perform. So use those clinicals to build your resume. And also so that you can be confident in the skills that you've learned in the skills lab, interacting with your patients and different things like that. So don't just go to those clinicals just hanging out. Get in there and do the work. Okay. So, but of course, you are going to be that leader, that charge nurse, especially in those skilled nursing facilities. And so, make sure we're going to locate our syllabus here in a few minutes. That's our contract. These are the expectations, what the university requires us to do, mine and yours. It's our guide. It's listed out in that week. Then it shows you, what is required. We're going to look at the books because you want to make sure those books doesn't happen very often, but sometimes your addition will be incorrect. You want to look at the course outcomes. You want to print referencing packages, whatever it is that you need to print. Make sure you have those things. If you don't print them, make sure at least you download them so you have them readily available and saved to your devices. You want to make sure that you look at the grading rubrics, which we talked about that. Complete the technology literacy check and syllabus quiz. I'll look back at that because someone says it wasn't on, but it should be, but we'll check that out. And that attendance policy, you all make sure that you are showing up in your classes. Let's go to our syllabus here. Let's download it and see what we can do. Okay, and so make it a little bit larger for you. Okay. PNR 152 transitions to practice. So this just gives you like the amount of time, the contact hours and all the different hours of how it's the board of nursing requires all these different things figured out. And they go through and decide which assignments counts for this much, how much time you need to sit in the course. Because if you notice, this class is longer than a lot of your other courses. So they figure out based on what the board of nursing requirements are, is how much seat time we're supposed to have, how many different activities, how much clinical time you're supposed to have that's associated with your different courses. Okay. And so concurrent enrollment in both 152 and 153 is mandatory. Successful completion of both courses is necessary to move forward. Okay. These are our learning objectives. Demonstrate clinical competence by effectively applying the essential nursing skills in diverse healthcare scenarios. As you know, when you go to clinicals, even if you went to hospital A 5 times, each time you went, it was a little different, but you should have been able to pull back on their prior knowledge, your foundation that you have, and be able to interact and respond appropriately. So those are our learning outcomes. So if we're saying we're successful, that HESI score of at least a 900, we should be able to do all of these things. Okay. For example, analyze the ethical and legal responsibilities in nursing while maintaining state mandated boundaries and prohibited actions for licensed practical nurses. We should be able to look at it and say, hey, this is something I cannot do, or this is something I can do as a licensed practical nurse. Okay. For example, something that comes to mind is that initial teaching. Can we as LPNs do the initial teaching? No, we don't. We usually reinforce. So, so these are the required resources. So once what you do is look here, and then I'll show you that other tab. So you're gonna take what's on your syllabus and look and see if you have all of these things in the course shell. And then you want to make sure that your additions are correct. I don't think we use Motaki until later on, but we do have 3 different books, but we don't use all of them at the same time. And then of course it's certain sections and pages for each one of them. And we tell you that in your PowerPoints and everything. This reference package, you can click it or access it directly from your Canvas. So make sure you look at those resources. So and this is how you calculate your GPAs and everything. So if you have a 82, that's 2.7 points, which is a B minus. So this just shows you, what it looks like in a grade, and then how many points did you actually get for that grade. So this is how, so a person has a 3.9, so they've made a 95 to 100% on practically all of their assignments and everything that was graded. So they have that A. So they end up with that 4.0. Okay. So we have 3 unit exams. We're gonna look at this in a minute, but I think they're weeks 3, 6, and 9. So that means we start exam reviews next week, because we have that exam in 2 weeks. Okay, the HESI final is not until week 11. You have those adaptive quizzes. You have 5 of those. Remember, there are 50 questions. They count 5% of that 100. These 5% seem small, you all, but every point matters. Okay, lesson activities. We'll talk about the group project. And then that professionalism, where you're off camera, where you sleep, where you're not dressed appropriately. We talked about all of those components that gets you this 5%. So this just shows you out of course the amount of time and hours that you are going to spend prepping for your quizzes, that actually taking your quizzes. That's just a breakdown of that. So then our different concepts, we're going to be looking at, healthcare law, economics, policies, leadership, your judgment, how do they pay? Who subscribes to Medicaid? Who can subscribe to Medicaid? Who will more than likely be approved, for Medicare, things like that. We'll look at that. Okay. So week 1. So you can use this as a guide to Once you finish and you wrap up week one, go back to your learning objectives and see, can you talk about or discuss, well, how did nursing evolve over time? What was it? What did they do before? What caused it to change? Why is nursing not the same as it was, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, which that's being facetious, you all. But what caused it to change? And then as a result of that change, how did it affect the nurse? Did it affect their pay? Did it affect their status, so to speak? The nursing profession, we are the most trusted profession. I want to say, I don't know how many years in a row now, but you're going to be that person that they're going to come to. They're going to come to, will you look at my toe? Will you check my blood pressure? You're going to be that person. And so, how did nursing change? What does it look like now? We're going to go all the way back to 1836 and up to present day. Okay. So let me go back over here. Okay, so that week one, this quiz is just a practice right here. This adaptive quiz, but then thereafter, week two is that quiz that actually counts. Okay, so week two, we're going to analyze ethical and legal responsibilities in nursing. So right now, you should have your student insurance coverage. But when you're working with your preceptors, I think you work under theirs. But once you get out and get those licenses, you're subscribed to your own insurance subscription. And so we got to keep ethical and legal in mind, because there is such a thing as, people suing not only the facilities, but the individual nurses as well. So we want to make sure that we are following those guidelines that are set forth in our state nurses practice act. And then our facilities, their policies and procedures, they should match what that nurse practice act says. So we should be okay if we do those things that are on their policies and procedures. And so, but mind you, things are revised, and we want to change as those things are revised, because that's what you're going to be held accountable for. In the event that something happens wrong, or someone says that you allege that you did something wrong, they're going to go back, well, hey, what does this state say this nurse is supposed to do? Okay, well, what did this facility say the nurse is supposed to do? Do the state nurse practice act and the facility's policies and procedures match? Well, let's look at the documentation. What did this nurse document that they actually did? So if the nurse's documentation, if the policies and procedures and the nurse practice act, all those things match, then it's, that person may just have bad outcomes, but it's not because you did anything that was wrong. Or that person may just be making up stuff because the documentation indicates that the nurse did what they were supposed to do according to the Nurse Practice Act, and then the policies and procedures of that place. So it lists the different chapters, in which we'll look at those. So yes, you're signing up for it. Think about what you're signing up for here. And then we're not the only ones on that healthcare team, but many times we're looked at as being the leader. So some other people, key players, we're all just important, that we're going to be working with: the physical therapist, the physical therapy aide, the healthcare providers, the podiatrists, the dentists. And so we're going to talk about those different roles, but then they always come back to you. But hey, you're the nurse, can you coordinate the care? That's just making a phone call sometimes saying, hey, we have a referral for physical therapy. It doesn't mean that you're going to actually do the physical therapy, but you're that person, like that center that's kind of holding everybody together for this one patient. Imagine you might have 20 patients, depends on what facility you're in. You're in the hospital setting, you may have 5, you may have 8, you may have 2. And then we have to be able to communicate. We're going to talk about communication and communicating, establishing those therapeutic relationships with our patients. We're going to talk about all of our different roles that we have, and then different principles. And then we have this thing called delegation. Now, students have said on that HESI, this delegation has been heavy. You have to understand what tasks that you can delegate. And we'll go over that like your checklist as the things that you can delegate, and also the things that help you decide, is this the appropriate person to delegate to? Can I delegate this task? So we'll go over all of that. But then keep in mind, even though we delegate it, it does not alleviate us as the licensed practical nurse responsibility of making sure the task that we delegated was done appropriately. So even though you delegated, you're still responsible to ensure that patient received the best care that they were supposed to. Okay, we're gonna look at some frameworks. Let me go back. That should have said exam for week 3. Yes, so week 3. Now we're down here to week 6. Week 6, and then the week 9 is your exam. So we're gonna look at that again. So you need to be plotting those on your calendar. Be thinking about, do I need this exam proctored on campus? Send that email with a 72-hour prior notice. Okay, so then week 7, we're gonna look at shared governance, and explain its role in the healthcare organizations. We're gonna look at healthcare financing, how are these things paid for? How does a facility stay afloat? Do they receive donations, or is it just based on getting that revenue, those funds back from what the doctor has documented, the nurse has documented in nurse's notes? How is this facility run? How do they pay their bills? How do they pay the light bill? How do they pay their staff? I'll look at all of that. Okay, and then week 8, we have more content. We're going to look at the role of research literature and how it guides our decision making. So remember, you're writing these papers. When you're writing papers in your different courses, you're gaining more knowledge, and you see how the evidence guides what we do or guides what we should not be doing, because it validates, hey, we shouldn't be doing this because the evidence shows this is the task, or this is how we should be doing it. But nevertheless, we don't quench the spirit of inquiry. That's where people come up, they're creative with how we can achieve the same results or the best or better results doing it differently. We don't quench that spirit of inquiry though. Okay. And then week 9. And so you do have, for this course, you do have that week between your unit exam 3 and your history. The way it was worked the last way in the old course, you took your exam 3 in week 10 and you took your history week 11. So it's reworked a little bit here. And then week 10, you all will actually present your leadership group project, which we'll talk more about that. Then you have your adaptive quizzes, week 11. For all of your courses, if you're taking more than one, it's week 11 or HISS. HESI exams are given in week 11, then remediation is due. Okay, let's see. What else we have for you here? Oh, I ended up, we had a few more pages. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I thought that was the end of the syllabus. Okay. So if you have accommodations, need accommodations, make sure that you reach out to your campus teams to make sure that, this information that's needed is collected and that we can provide whatever it is that we need to provide. If we need to provide it, that's what we need to do. So classroom policy, our big goal is to build a respectful learning and work environment. We can agree to disagree, but we do encourage you to share your ideas, be open to listening, and learning it. Just because now many times I'll ask you all to explain the concept of respond. And it's just so that we can hear it more than several times, because repetitiveness, we automatically start remembering things, not even intentionally. And also sometimes the way you say it, it will resonate, or it may make the light bulb come on for some. So just like, and we're saying the same thing, but because it's said a little bit different, it kind of stands out. So don't be afraid of this space. This is a safe space. You're expected to demonstrate a high level of professionalism. That's what we're signing up to be. We're nurses. We're that trusted profession. They're coming to us and they're looking for us to do the right thing without anyone standing over our shoulders. All right. So this is just saying teamwork. You're going to have that project, that team project, that group project, and you're going to, be working together. It's imperative that students embody these qualities and values during participation in class, as their practice is equal crucial as acquiring new intellectual knowledge and related competencies. So we want you, practice that professionalism here when you're in clinical. You're expected to be on time. Essentially, this is kind of just repeating what we just went over in the PowerPoint. Consistently and respectfully communicate with both peers and the instructor. Even if we disagree, it's a little way that we can communicate and be respectful toward each other. Adhere to the dress code. Remember, that's part of your professionalism that you get marked on every week. So make sure that we're doing that. Be careful about tagging, sharing, and all those other words that go along with, looking at information and sending it on. Make sure you have your ID badge when complete all assigned tasks. Make sure you can always turn things in early, you all, just to get that out of the way. Okay. We talked about the attendance requirements. We only meet 1 day a week. We talked about that 20% that you might not get that notification, but depending on you logging in at a certain time, it could mean 15 minutes taken away or docked from you. So make sure you're logging in. This is talking about labs and simulations here. So if you don't attend the class, any class for 14 consecutive days, in our example, we meet 1 day a week. So that means if you miss twice, that's 14 days. Okay, makeup requirements, we talked about that. Okay. Okay, you have to have that 78% without rounding, y'all. Remember, every point matters. Okay. And this is just talking about the different activities, what's graded. We talked about the late work policy. Send that if in the event that something's going to happen, something's going on, and you think you're going to be late, go ahead and send that email. You have to put it in writing, because otherwise you got to get that. You have to get that prior approval. We talked about exams, the final hissing. Those requirements there. Okay, and I think we made it to the end of that. So make sure you put that syllabi for each of your courses. Yes, so that quiz again, you all will look at it and see why it's not open. So we will look at that. But the one this week doesn't count. It is really not your quiz one. Quiz one is really in week 2. Thank you for that information. Okay, let me go back here. So let's go ahead and look at your exam review schedule. So there is in the announcement section, that's where you go to look for your different communications. And this is exam review schedule for the term. Okay, so if you can, attend it live. But at a minimum, make sure that you at least go back through your classroom recordings and also the exam review. So there are 3 of us. I don't know why I was thinking it was 4 of us, but there are 3 of us for this course. So we do offer different times and dates. If you can't attend any of those, at a minimum, make sure once we send the links out, because once the class is finished, we have to download it. It downloads and we have to upload it to YouTube. And then we send the link out to everybody, no matter if you're not in Dr. Kinsey's class, but her review is shared with all courses, all sections. And so just make sure that you're at least going back and looking at those recordings. So make sure you just look at your schedule and see what you can attend. And if not, then at least commit to looking at those recordings. Okay, so let's look in. We talked about academic integrity. Let's still go back through it though. Let's make sure okay, let's talk about this. So this is the first time that we're submitting assignments and things for this course because it's a brand new course, but it's still leadership, just a different, I guess, package. So if you have completed an assignment that has to go through Turnitin, if you can complete a similar assignment for this school or any other school, make sure that you go in and reword it, paraphrase it, because if you submit the exact same assignment, it's going to flag you for plagiarism. Plagiarism is not tolerated, and the consequence of choosing this path it can end your journey. So you're like, well, it's my work, but still you hate because you submitted that one time, that's that for that assignment. If you submit a similar, because sometimes some topics are similar, that's why I say this is a new course. So I know you haven't submitted it for this course, but the topics or the concepts that you discussed in another class might have been similar. So just make sure that you're using those 5 within the last 5 years, and then also making sure that you're paraphrasing and using those in-text references, because if not, it's going to flag you as plagiarism, as you're plagiarizing. And so make sure that doesn't happen. To keep things honest and ethical, please understand that any written work you submit is also submitted to a plagiarism site for review. Feedback is provided to you and to us. And once that review is complete, please check your grade book for that feedback. We also run a written work through AI content detector, which checks for all AI sites currently on the market. If it comes back that you plagiarized, the instructor will notify you, which your dean, they look at that anyways. Those assignments that have to go through that, they look at it. Dean Brown looks at it, we look at it, your campus dean. And then so everybody's notified. There could be many outcomes that may occur as a result of not turning in your original work, but don't go down that path, y'all. Just take the time, to schedule, pencil yourself in on your calendar, to me time to get your work done, to take time to paraphrase and look at those resources so that you can paraphrase and cite correctly. If you need help, the Fortis Writing Center is there. Have someone, non-nursing, proofread your work, your friends, your family. Of course, you can reach out to us. Be honest, and learning will only benefit you in the long run. So even if it's a similar topic, it doesn't matter. If it has to run through that thing, the AI generator thing is gonna be checked. And also that plagiarism thing is checked you out. Please take the time to write the stuff over, paraphrase it, reference those sources. It's like, oh, it's not gonna pick it up. It picks it up. Stay off those sites, because there is somebody, it's not me, but somebody sits out there and they look at that. Okay, Professor Burgard has done this beautiful math thing. So we have shared her YouTube video for math. There are some campuses, not all have that on-site person. But we share different resources because people learn differently. We have all those different learning styles. So make sure that we done passed our second break. Well, what we'll do is, okay, well, we just a little bit past the second break. So let me just say this and then we'll stop. We'll take a break because I know you've been sitting for a while. So I'll just stop there. So Professor Burgard is in your announcement. We put different resources because we do want to address all the different learning styles. She has a beautiful video explanation. Some campuses, not all, have that person on site. And of course, for the most part, when the students have made it this far, math is not an issue for you all, but you still want to strengthen that foundation with that math. So that information is there. So let's pause. Let's take a 5-minute break because it'll soon be over here. So remember, the Turning 5, the Zoom is still on, you all. It's being recorded. And I keep saying this. I know you all say, why should I keep saying it? Because I don't want you to say or do anything that we shouldn't be saying or doing on this camera. See you in 5. Okay, let me share my screen here. So we're gonna look at the evolution of nursing, how it has evolved and changed over time. So who was who was known as the founder of modern nursing? What's her name?
Florence Nightingale.
Okay. Yes, Florence Nightingale. So I do want to point out to you, and it's in each announcement to schedule time with me. Please send an email, dates, and times in your time zone because we're in different time zones. If you are a SAP or reentry student, weekly meetings are required. That can take place via email or Zoom or a phone call. So just it could be as simple as, hey, identifying something that you need assistance with, and or saying, hey, I'm okay, but I'm meeting. I just want to check in to say that I don't need any assistance or anything right now. All students are, encouraged to schedule tutoring if that's what you need, but it is a weekly meeting requirement if you are considered a reentry or a SAP student. When you send the email, send several dates with times in your time zone. All right, so yes, Florence Nightingale. So let me share my screen here. So once you are, even though we are life learners, we once you sit for your license or your NCLEX exam, you are licensed in that state. And now they have the license where you can actually meet the requirements. Several states have gotten together and come up with this solution or this formula or this answer that says, hey, if you meet all of these requirements, you can be licensed in this state, this state, and this state. So you have that multi-state licenses for you all. But nevertheless, that NCLEX puts that stamp of approval. It says, hey, you're ready to go. And then, you're licensed. So you're correct. Florence Nightingale was one of the students of the first nursing school, and she is known as the founder of modern nursing. So Nightingale's core beliefs, she pushed for nursing to be that respectful vocation. And like I said, for the last, I don't know how many years, it is listed as that respected, most trusted profession. Even if things happen, people have bad outcomes, it doesn't mean that, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. And so because you establish those therapeutic relationships and build that trust, not to say that you don't do things like you're supposed to, you bend the rules or anything for them. They're still, if they have bad outcomes, they're least likely, to be litigious, because they do understand sometimes things happen based on your DNA, based on, these other things that the patient may have had going on. But nevertheless, we are that trusted, it's an honor system. They trust us. So nursing was a sacred calling, a commitment to work for mankind. And so it's that service for humanity, no matter what setting you're in, is to provide that best care for that patient. So this one's just talking about the early schools. As a nursing, it's been a shortage ever since I've heard the word nurse or understood what it meant. And here it is back here, what they're even saying, as a nursing shortage continued, hospital-based schools of nursing emerged as a cost-effective labor force for the hospitals. And what we're seeing now is they're going back to this. So there are so many different types of nursing schools. They have night, hybrid, full-time, part-time, hybrid. You can be a mix of, it's just all these different definitions. And what I've seen here lately over the last couple of years is some of the hospitals, they're like, so to speak, growing their own. So they have partnered with the schools of nursing at these institutions, community colleges and just different institutions, and where the nursing school is housed in their hospital and or their skilled nursing facility. I haven't been there to see it, but it's some kind of way it falls under there. And so as a result of it, if the person works as a CNA or patient care tech, they're like I said, sort of like growing their own. And they're giving like these incentives and this automatic bonuses and things because you're coming back to work for that facility. So that's a thing of the past, but it's coming back, hospital-based schools. So they're right there. So you're right there where the business is actually happening. The care is being provided. And we see these accelerated programs, and you pick what's best for you. Nurses' 24-hour schedules include all different types of roles. This right here, this is looking back, way, way back, where people were applying leeches. We still administer enemas now, but we don't do the leeches. I'm not sure of any settings that we're doing that. But home health care, there are so many different settings out there. So that's why I say embrace your different clinical settings and your opportunity to do preceptorships. Just make sure you're at least observing and taking it all in, because it helps you decide which setting you might not want to work in or what setting that you more than likely would like to have a career in. Okay, so as we move to the 20th century, Mississippi was the first state to pass a law licensing practical nurses. Okay, today all states require mandatory licensure for nurses, including practical nurses. All states do. Okay, so we'll talk about this National League of Nursing. Organizations were developed for the most part, no matter what profession it is, there's some type of organization out there that's nationwide that drills down to the state. So you'll have your state nurses association, which they're automatically fall under the umbrella of that nationwide um, League of Nursing. And those entities, they kind of make sure that the Nurse Practice Acts are revised, they're kept up with and up to date, and they offer those continuing education credit opportunities so that we can keep our license current. So, out of all the things that we do as a nurse, they summed it all up in 4 words, you all. So, these are 4 phrases that the United States Department of Vocational Education said, hey, these are 4 phrases that we can use to describe the scope of practice. Out of all the things we do, they said that it falls in one of these 4 categories. So we need to know, judge, appraise, recognize, and determine. Out of all those different things that we do, just think about it. We check vital signs, we do head-to-toe assessments, we collaborate with that registered nurse. We are reinforcing education with our clients, because when we don't do that initial educating, we are administering injections, intramuscular. We're inserting Foley acids. We're DC and Foley acids. They summed it all up in those 4 terms. So we have the different levels of nursing here, and you can go beyond the 4 years. At a minimum, you can do the 2 years. And like I said, what we're seeing now is those hospital-based partnerships now, where they're bringing it back to the people's settings that a lot of people work in. A lot of nursing students are already PCTs or MAs. I think medication assistants. There's so many different titles out there. There was a new one that came about when COVID came. Medication assistant pass. They didn't call them nursing. Something, but anyways, if you had made it through some of your courses with a certain grade, you could pass medications in skilled nursing facilities. And they paid you almost the same as a nurse, but you had to have that oversight. You could not give, there were some restrictions. You couldn't give PRN medications, certain things you couldn't do, but you were called, it wasn't you all may have known. Some of you all may even be what I'm talking about.
It's called ALS, I think, certification. So it's like
Yes.
it's how you get your CPR, but it's another certification that's called ALS.
And so you pass out you provide care almost the same as a nurse would. That has a license. Yes, they created that. That was birthed out of the pandemic. And so things have changed over time. It's not just one thing. It is not that you have to sit in the brick and mortar. It's that you have classes at night. It's that you have classes early in the morning. It's that you go to class 1 day a week and you still meet those requirements, because that seat time, you're required to do your own study time. So, and it's good that it's different and people have choices. Therefore, you can still, enjoy your family, you can work and still do all these other things and still advance your career. So look at this, you all. This hasn't been long. So we've always had the NCLEX, but the first computerized NCLEX was just in 1994. So before then, it was paper and pencil. So you went in, from my understanding, I took it on a computer, but from my understanding, I think you went the two or 3 days to the facility wherever they gave the test at. Most states have those testing facilities. No matter what you want to take a test for, you go in certain sites, and you were there, paper and pencil. And so in 1996, so even though you are a licensed practical nurse, there's still certifications that you can actually gain after getting that license. So, and you'll get that information from your nurse's website, your state's nurse's website. So you can gain those additional certifications. And then usually facilities, most facilities, not all, there's an increase or difference in pay because you're certified in whatever it is that you get the certification. So let's see, the COVID-19 put a tremendous strain on the healthcare workforce, leading to a greater nursing shortage because we were already in that shortage. And so out of that did birth um, those different careers. And like I said, you did almost the same thing. It was real similar to what the licensed practical nurse did. Very similar. You had some oversight, like I said, the PRN medications and some other things. I can't think of them right now. Okay, slideshow. Okay, so this critical thinking, we're always, things are always just fluid, things are changing. And so you're going to be that person. You're that leader, you're that nurse. You got to be thinking about, once a person's admitted to a hospital, we're already thinking about discharge. So we're all the time thinking, thinking, thinking. But for sure, if our patient goes bad on us, like what do we do? What's our response? What are we communicating? What do we communicate? How are we communicating? So, a fact, let me go back. Am I missing a slide? Okay, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I think I'm going the wrong way. Okay, there we go. All right, overview of critical thinking. Your ability to focus on your thinking, on how to get the results you need, can make the difference between whether you succeed or fail in this fast-paced healthcare system. So you want to gather all a good understanding of your concepts, that strong foundation. Even though we're life learners, no one knows everything, and we're going to continually be learning new things. Things are being revised. But you do want to have that strong foundation from these concepts, from your med surg, from your peds, your OB, so that whatever setting you end up in, as your patient goes bad on you, or that you notice a change in your patient. If you see an order and all the components are not there, what do you do? So because it's not going to be an instructor there to say, hey, is this order, like how we do in the clinical settings, look at this medication order. Do we have all the components? Well, the medication right? You're doing that on your own. And when those things are not there, what do you do? What's your response? So learning how to improve your thinking skills does not have to be difficult. It is, I promise you, getting those concepts, looking at videos. We have some links to videos in there. Whatever the concept is, identify your learning style and try to look at the content in those different ways. Even if it's not your learning style, just that repetitiveness of looking at the concept information will help you to remember. Okay, so we as nurses must be able to move from one healthcare setting to another. So, as you rotate through your different clinical sites, you're going to be identifying with settings. Man, I want this setting. Oh, yeah, I like this setting. But even with that, we get that job in that setting. What if that facility closes? We have to change a setting. So we have to be fluent and critical thinkers, ready to bounce back on our feet. And that even means identifying when you need help. I don't know what to do. I need some help. So that's part of it as well. Most clients and their families are involved in their healthcare decisions. So you're talking to them, they're asking you questions because you are there. What is going to be your response? And so make sure, that we have, we're going to follow our policies and procedures, but make sure we have that good foundation. Well, they ask you, well, what are you counting? I'm counting your respirations. What is respirations? What's that conversation? What are you going to say to that person? So how are you going to reinforce that information with that patient? So critical thinking, lifelong journey. Critical thinking is related to the nursing process, which you're going to talk about that here. Using that clinical judgment. The LPN is expected to be an active learner and a critical thinker. Okay, so purposeful, informed, driven by client and family needs. So even though we have 4 patients, patient in room 201, 203, so forth, 4 patients, they all have diabetes. One might be a type 1, one might be a type 2, one may be a type 2 with a hip replacement, one might be a type 2 with in for a hypertensive crisis. So we provide that individualized patient-centered care. Because even though all of them have diabetes, the way that and all the other stuff that they have going on with them, some things might be similar, our interventions, but then everything is going to be specific to what that patient needs. So it's not a one size fit all. Okay, so we want to be guided by our professional standards, which we'll talk about that Nurse Practice Act here. So thinking, what are we thinking about? How are we thinking? What information are we gathering? Are we putting things into categories? So non-focused thinking, you engage your brain out of the habit without much conscious thought. Okay, habitual thinking, we get up, we go to the bathroom, shower, dress, and so on. This type of thinking involves any routine we do that is important, but does not require us thinking hard. It's like you automatically, you just go get in, you grab your key, you're going to the store, you just walk around your house, you grab your keys. You don't have to say, oh, I think I need to grab my keys. You automatically grab those keys, you go out the door, you lock your door, you get in unlock the door, the car door, you get it, you start, and you go on your way. You don't have to really think about it. Random thoughts, multiple short scenes and thoughts come and go through the mind and have no particular purpose or goal. We're just surfing, is what they say. We're just mental channel surfing. Okay. The room, and I always say this word, it doesn't roll off my tongue correctly. I'm talking about this one right here, you all. The same situation or scene is replayed in the mind over and over and over without reaching an outcome. It's just like, just over and over. All or none thinking. The mind is made up and no additional facts will be considered. Black and white thinking with no grays in between. But what about those 5 patients that have diabetes? The one that has type 1, the one that has type 2, the one that has type 2 with the hip replacement. So, what's our best way of thinking? Negative thinking, that mind is stuck on negative thoughts and blocks worthwhile thinking. So this happened, but then we can't provide the best care for our patient because we're stuck right here. Whoever was supposed to be taking care of them didn't get their bath in a timely manner. So we're stuck on this patient did not get their bath in a timely manner. They got their bath. We're gonna address them not getting their bath in a timely manner, but we have to still go on and provide the procedure, get them prepped for the surgery or whatever it is. Okay. Critical thinking is an advanced way of thinking, a problem-solving method. It is based on the nursing process. It's used to resolve problems, to fix things, find solutions. It involves, so how do we do that? Well, we got to collect some data. Think about that nursing process. We got to collect some data because what are we trying to solve? We have to figure out what we're trying to solve. So we're collecting data. So each encounter, as we go into that patient room, at a minimum of every 2 hours, we're all the time assessing. We're talking to that patient. Well, last time they responded a little bit, their response was a little bit quicker, faster. It was appropriate. Now they're talking. I can't really understand what they're saying. Or we went in the patient's room. They responded appropriately, readily. This time we go in, they respond appropriately and readily. But we're all the time collecting information and we're analyzing it. Hey, is there a change? What is the change? Is there something else I need to do to verify that this is a change? Got the blood pressure. It was 140/90. Well, we learned what the norm is. So what do? We have to go back and verify. We recheck it. It might be our equipment. It might be that's what the results are. And so we recheck it. Okay, well, is this blood pressure now that we have? Is that within range? So what do we do with that information? It's like a fluid thing. It's constant, but we're all the time collecting data. We verify the data, and then what's our next steps? What should we do? It answers questions such as how can we do this better? And how can we assist the client in achieving the highest quality outcome? We want that client as close to their norm as possible, if not to their norm. What resources are essential? So we got a patient that comes in that have a hip replacement. Well, we're gonna need therapy, right? Because this person more than likely got to figure out how to use this new hip they got. And you would think, well, it's in the same place, but then they have to relearn those movements sometimes. They have to feel safe because sometimes, they're afraid of putting weight, moving around because they do realize that this is not their bones that they have inside of them. And then what resources we see it? What other people on the healthcare team? If this person, are they gonna need a cane, walker, or crutch? So we're all the time thinking, collecting data and analyzing that data. We use that nursing process. Use the nursing process in critical thinking. It helps us to think uniformly so that we don't leave out anything. So critical thinking, of course, it involves questioning with meaning, judgment made on facts and not on assumptions. Well, they look like they have a fever. It looked like they was breathing fast. Okay, we stop and count the respirations. We check the O2 sat. We measure the temperature. So we don't assume. Collaboration. So it says they appeared. No, just write down, use descriptive terms and write down what you actually see. The patient has facial grimacing. The patient has no facial grimacing. So collaboration is key to effective thinking because we're going to have to talk to the physical therapist, speech therapist, the healthcare provider, the family members, the patient themselves. And again, using the nursing process in critical thinking, it is part of that critical thinking. The nursing process need to know that. Decisions are based on the right thing to do rather than emotions. So we want to make sure that we go back to, and you're going to have your patients are going through things. We're human. We have those, we empathize, we sympathize. Sometimes, we understand because we've had the same thing that happened to us, or we empathize because we have not, but because we're human, we feel, compassionate for that other person. But we have to get back to what's the best care that we should be providing for this patient. We want to make sure that they have all the information that they need so that they can make an informed decision. What is the policy and procedure that guides us on the things that we do? Okay. So factors that influence critical thinking: upbringing and culture, our motivation, our attitude. These are things that says, hey, oh, well, yeah, they were not responding like they had been responding all day when I went in and check on them. Well, maybe it's just because it's later in the day. I'll just pass it on to the next nurse. But what about us going in providing that best care? We notice that change. We follow through it with other assessment findings. We report those findings. What's our response to that? And it is going to be based on, the culture, your upbringing, your motivation, and your attitude. If it wasn't for you to come to work that day, if something's going on, if you're not going to provide that best care to that client, just take that day off. Just take that day off. Additional factors that influence critical thinking, wow. Your self-confidence. No one knows everything, but that stronger foundation, that better understanding that you have about the respiratory system, the organs that are there. What are they supposed to do? Well, when this lungs don't do what it's supposed to, what assessment findings will I actually find? So I said all that to say, having that strong foundation of an understanding of those concepts, those body systems, and those different disease processes, that builds your confidence. There are, I mentioned, continuing education credit units. Those are the information and the classes, things that you have to go through to maintain your licensure. So building what strengthening that foundation, it helps you to be able to say, hey, well, I have this understanding about this right here. So I'm able to move forward with assisting with this procedure or doing whatever it is that you have that's at hand. Problem solving in the nursing process. If we don't understand what the nursing process is, us collecting that data, then we're going to have problems with, critical thinking. Lean on your mentors, your preceptors, or whatever you all call them in those settings. Seek out opportunities to learn or at least observe. In some settings, some things that they're doing, you can only observe in certain settings. So, hey, be that person that's able to observe. Ask those questions. Okay, critical thinking in the NCLEX, PN cognitive levels, knowledge and recall, and we'll have some examples of these. We'll do like a little testing thing here. But knowledge is recalling and repeating what you have memorized. Comprehension is that basic understanding. Application, apply what you learn to new situations. And then analysis is breaking down complex parts and relate them to the bigger picture. So an example I like to use is being in the skills lab. We're practicing learning injection sites, then performing injections, drawing up medication. So you got checked off on. And we're moving through the little boxes here. Then we get to clinical and we go in and there's an opportunity for us to give insulin. And we know how insulin works. We draw it up, administer it. We've identified our landmarks, whatever body part we gave it. And then as we interact with our patient throughout the day, our patient has a change in mental status. We know that we have an understanding of the endocrine system. We know about the pancreas, how it works. We understand about the diabetes. We understand that we just gave insulin. And so if we have that change in mental status, that person's cool and clammy, breaking down all of those complex parts and thinking it through, hey, what are our next steps? We probably need to contact the healthcare provider. Do they have any standing orders? We probably need to check that glucose. Their sugar may be too high or too low. So this is how you start off with, learning those body systems. You build your way up to doing a skill. That skill leads to us providing care specifically to a disease process, which the one I just used was diabetes. And then based on our assessment findings, our patient has a change in mental status, and we're able to break down those complex parts and then relate them to that bigger picture. We have this patient that has a change in mental status. They also have diabetes. And we know how that can affect the body if that person's does not have a nice balance in their food, energy, and calories. Marissa?
I'm trying to leave for some reason. It's not letting me click leave.
I was just making sure you're okay. That end button.
Yeah.
It might be your connectivity too. That's what it might be.
Yeah, I don't know. My computer's been running slow. Like I tried to get on it over break and it's just lagging.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go on and start reviewing the content. If it lets you log out, that's fine. But the class is officially over. I just want you to know that.
Oh yeah, I heard you.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy your night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So critical thinking, comprehension, application, analysis are what employers expect an LPN to be able to perform their job duties correctly. Instructors also inspect this level of competence in the clinical area as a student nurse prepares to transition into practice. The LPN is responsible for many of the judgments and decisions made in the healthcare. A newly licensed LPN is increasingly required to make more complex decisions about clients. Okay, so let's put our critical thinking to use. We have a patient, Jane Harris, who's age 58. Weight is 92 kilograms. So you want to translate it to pounds, what we do, multiply by 2.2. The height is 162 centimeters. Okay, so this person is listed as obese because their BMI, body mass index, is 35.1. So anything greater than or equal to 30%, that's obese. Chief complaints, Patient says, Jane says, I've been feeling very tired and thirsty, and I go to the bathroom a lot. So already some things should start popping out. So you should start putting some things into categories. We have a person that's obese, they've been feeling tired, thirsty, going to the restroom a lot. They also have a medical history of hypertension, family history of diabetes, the mother. The medications that they're currently taking is lisinopril. Okay, well, what is this medication for? Okay, well, this medication is for hypertension. So let's look at their vital signs. Temperature is 98.6. This is normal, abnormal. Heart rate, 88. This is normal, abnormal. Blood pressure is 146/90. Respiration is 18. O2 saturation on room air is 98%. Okay, so these are the lab results that this patient has. So let's look at this. So we're looking at their fasting glucose without any food on board is 178. So now we look at the normal range. Is this above the range, or is it within range, or is it less than? It is above. So we look the hemoglobin A1C. This looks back at their blood sugars range over the past 3 months. So it's 8.2. The normal range is less than 5.7. So is this high or low? So this is how we should be thinking through all of the information. Remember, what are the diagnostic criteria for diabetes? Understand based on her labs and symptoms, explain why Ms. Harris is likely a diabetic. What initial measurement steps would you implement for Ms. Harris? Okay, and then analyze. We want to identify the possible complications of unmanaged diabetes in Ms. Harris. Assess the appropriateness of her current antihypertensive regimen. Okay, fasting. Glucose greater than or equal to 126. Her hemoglobin was greater than that 6.5. Okay, she has those classic symptoms of 3Ps: polyuria, polydipsia, and she's fatigued or tired. That fasting glucose was 178. Her hemoglobin A1C was 8.2. Both of those exceed or are higher than the threshold or higher than the normal value. Okay. So we want them to initiate those lifestyle changes. We're going to talk to them about diet and exercise. They may end up starting some medications, but they do start with those lifestyle modifications. Okay. Here it is. We have a 54-year-old male client admitted this morning with lower back pain. Past medical history of heart failure treated with digoxin. So be thinking about these medications. What are they for? Are there any things that we need to do prior to administering these medications? What body systems are mostly affected? Okay, so we got the vital signs within normal limits, allergies, this person's a full code. Okay. What orders does the LPN anticipate receiving and why? Okay. They're going to probably more than likely DC that first amount because the person's going to be losing that potassium. Because if they're losing it, we'll have to replace it, right? Okay. If the digoxin level comes back as 2 to 3, it is within normal. Is that within normal limits? And then what is this? What are those signs and symptoms of digoxin toxicity? Is this diuretic a potassium sparing diuretic? But if it's not, we should be expecting to replace the potassium.